This is Mallorca's 45, fan of the Fridge FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Southern California, this is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Artificial intelligence learns to identify cancer in mammograms. An international team, including researchers from Google Health, designed and trained a computer model on X-ray images from nearly 29,000 women. The algorithm outperformed 6 radiologists in reading mammograms. Unlike human experts who had access to the patient's history, the AI only had the mammograms to go on. The results showed that the AI model was just as good as the current double reading system of 2 doctors. And it was actually superior to spotting cancer than a single doctor. The reduction of false negatives is 2.7% where cancer is missed. A university in India will now offer a 6-month course that teaches doctors how to treat people that claim to see or be possessed by ghosts. The existence of the program does not confirm the existence of ghosts, officials say, but it will focus on psychosomatic disorders, which are often confused with paranormal occurrences. The university will be the first in the country to offer such a course that would teach doctors about the Ayurvedic remedies to treat ghost-related ailments. Courses begin in January. With space becoming big business, the U.S. Department of Commerce is developing its own estimate of the size of the space industry to measure space's role in the economy. Studies and reports have offered a range of definitions of what industries are included, as well as how to account for government versus commercial space activities. Those estimates and projections for future growth have led some to predict the space economy to be worth at least $1 trillion within 20 years. U.S. government officials have frequently talked about efforts to create a $1 trillion space economy. More than 220 terracotta warriors have been unearthed during the 3rd excavation at the mausoleum of the first Chinese emperor. The newly discovered ranks are providing new insights into the army of the first Chinese emperor. They are offering new evidence on how his army was organized and structured. It can also help researchers to understand how he was able to conquer a great number of states over a large geographical area. And it is believed that even more terracotta warriors will be found in the mausoleum in the future. A Mayan palace emerges from the Yucatan jungle. Researchers from the National Institute of Anthropology and History have confirmed the finding of a Mayan palace in the Yucatan. The 55-meter structure is being excavated and conserved together with 4 other buildings in the pre-Hispanic Mayan city. Once buried in the jungle with overgrowth, the site was discovered in 1939 by American archaeologist Willis Andrews IV. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM, and thank you so much for listening.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed risk.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill I was going to say an undisclosed location, listening to the Rogie Report in a mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Roop. Welcome back. It's Tuesday night, January the 14th, on into the 15th, and Dr. Greg Little is here with us tonight, so we're going to discuss some ancient history. We're probably going to get into that, maybe a little psychology, too. This is an interesting guy, and he's been on Coast to Coast and some other radio programs as well, and as you see, we like these deep intellectual discussions, especially when it comes to finding out the truth. So that's what's coming up here shortly. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Listen, go get the tea. 2 bags, 1 free. That means 3 for the price of 2 at getthetea.com. Get yourself cleansed, especially right now. You guys know what you want to do. It's January, February. You got a few months to hide in the winter and get thin. So before you do the exercise purge, man, really clean yourself out. There's no better way to do that and unless you got the tea and all their other products there too as well. I mean, we can get into that stuff, but you know, I've got mounds of the stuff here, but my favorite, I gotta say, is the tea, the G.I. Joy, and probably the Allison. It's kept me from getting sick. I've went flueless, and I think it has a lot to do with that. You know, I've gotten a little sick here and there, but it was just like short spells. Also, CBD oil, ancientlifeoil.com. There really is no other CBD oil to get other than that. Really, there isn't. It's time tested and it's the best. And metaphorical archaeology. And now, if you've had a paranormal experience or some type of encounter that's given you post-traumatic stress, please give her a call because she's very nice and discreet and professional. And this healing has been known to work. It's worked on vets with other things. So, and of course, like we said before, you know, if you've had one of these kind of encounters, there's really no way to express that with people. That's like in the regular field, I guess. But, you know, sometimes you'll get considered crazy. Or maybe you won't. Who knows? But at least with metaphorical archaeology, you don't have to worry about that. And they use alternative techniques that have been proven to work. All right? So give them a call to it. 214-995-3754. Really cool too today. Like I got the package in here, some more studio equipment that I got to hook up. Thanks to also Barbara and her, you know, and metaphorical archaeology. We got the some things from Telos that came in 2 big boxes today. So the studio rack is going to be pretty full, and then we're going to have to set up a whole new sound chain here. So things are going to sound a little different, hopefully better. That's what the plan is. And then all those people that just can't help but curse, well, we'll have a button for them. That's how that works. Also, go check out ufoseekers.com, backed and supported by the Fringe FM. You know them as the best journalists in ufology. Brutal truth, but actually the truth. And so you go check out their YouTube channel. Get their new stuff there at youtube.com/UFO-Seekers. If you've had a sighting, give them a call at 661-UFO-7889. If you want to, we're trying to do this thing as well here on the show where we're trying to get like, I was going to put it on Pinterest because the Lighting the Void has a Pinterest board that Pinterest is kind of fun. Yes, people still use Pinterest. And you can get on there and just start posting stuff that you like. Well, I was going to make this Void Walker board, like all 50 states. And, you know, just as soon as I announced, like, hey, we need a few more states, people were started buying shirts. And I know that looks like Susie also needs her shirt for winning. I'm getting that out to you as well. And if you haven't gotten a shirt, whether you've purchased or a hat or something, please let me know. Sometimes the stuff's on back order and I'm working through it. I just, you know, not used to it because a whole bunch of orders came in at once. And then usually when you have a whole bunch of orders, then you got, you know, like problems and stuff, and then you got to work through it. So believe me, I am working through it, and I'm going to get that stuff out to you. All right. But you can support the show by going and grabbing some swag from the store or donating at lightingthevoid.com. So as I stated before, Dr. Greg Little is here with us, and he's a psychologist turned explorer and documentary maker. He's also a co-author of the books Edgar Cayce's Atlantis, Mound Builders, Ancient South America, and People of the Web. He also has over 30 other books in print in various areas of psychology, also including Edgar Cayce's Atlantis and the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Native American Indian Mounds and Earthworks, and his newer book with co-author Andrew Collins entitled Denisovan Origins. He'll probably have to say that better than me. Hybrid Humans, Göbekli Tepe, and the Genesis of the Giants of Ancient America. His research has been featured on the National Geographic Channel, MSNBC, Discovery, and the History Channel. His website is freedom, the number 2, change, freedom2change.org. Dr. Greg Little, thank you for coming on the show, man. It's a real pleasure having you here.
Hey, Joe, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to do a different show, and I appreciate it very much. That's kind of an old bio you have there, and the Freedom to Change website is one that we use professionally for some self-help materials. But we have another one called. Yeah, there you go. apmagazine.info is the one I would push people to. apmagazine.info. But enough on all that. The Denisovans, I'll use that term, Denisovan, and the book title of the new one is Denisovan Origins, which I guess we'll explain the Denisovans in a minute. That other long subtitle, the publisher, which is Inner Traditions, loves those long subtitles. And I actually like long subtitles of books too, because it kind of explains everything in the book. Because who in the world would know what Denisovan Origins refers to? It's so new and such a recent thing, a recent discovery, that few people are even aware that such a thing exists. And I know we'll get there and start talking about that. But again, it's a pleasure, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, and I apologize about the website mix up there. I think that was just miscommunication between probably me and my producer. And he actually, in all fairness, he actually did put that apmagazine.info in there. It just wasn't. I don't think he linked it, so it didn't highlight and stick out for me. And that was my deal there. So
no problem.
But I am interested in learning about this. Our history of this nation seems pretty, like, our history of the world actually just don't seem right. It seems like everything's not right. And the more I look into it, I get, honestly, Greg, I get really confused about what's true and what's not, because there's so much battle going on. I mean, as well as I do, between people like Graham Hancock and when John Anthony West was here, and they were always considered like, I don't know, alternative or maybe woo-woo, even in like mainstream, I guess you could say, history and archaeology, until I think Robert Schoch came out and was like, no, look at this stuff. This is real. Like there's this evidence of, water erosion is real. And still, they fight us on that. So, I mean, is this what you're looking into as well? Like, part of it.
I really started out as a believer in the mainstream. In graduate school, of course, you're trained in the scientific method, and you're trained to pretty much accept the current theories and the current belief system. And there are belief systems that drive archaeology. The main point to me is really the origins of humanity. And the true history of the ancient world really is not what we have been told. And of course, we all know that the winners usually write history. Whoever's left standing writes history. And really, the Americas are a great example of that. When I started high school and even elementary school, most of us, when we go in elementary school, we learn a little bit about American history. I don't think they teach it as much anymore as they did as when I was in many, many years ago, many decades ago. But for most of us, American history started with the statement in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And that was pretty much burned into our minds. And then the next thing up, we knew about George Washington. That's kind of where history began. But there's this massive unknown history in the Americas. And we know that Native Americans were here. Indians is what they were called, because, of course, Columbus was looking for India. And when he landed in the Bahamas, Columbus never set foot in North America. So when he landed in the Bahamas, he called them Indians because he figured this was India. And, of course, it wasn't. So the Native Americans were in North America, Central America, South America, and in all the islands of the Caribbean. The astonishing thing that I wish I had known when I was very, very young, because it would have changed probably my whole future. The astonishing thing is this. In 1492, when Columbus set foot in the Bahamas, the Americas had a population somewhere between 57 million to 150 million people. That is a lot of people. Within about 50 years, that population declined down to just somewhere under 5 million. And think about that. Think of how that entire civilization of 150 million people or so was decimated. Over 90%, 95% of them were wiped out. Now, the Europeans that came in did their part in decimating the native population with wars and so on. But the main thing were all the diseases that they brought that the native populations had virtually no immunity to at all. So within like 50 years, their population was just decimated. And as that happened, all of their history, almost all of their history, was lost. They had, for many of these civilizations in the Americas, they had an oral history that was passed along from generation to generation. Some others, like in South America and in Central America, well, when the Spanish friars found their written history in books, they burned all the books. Yeah. And there were hundreds of books with their history in it that they burned. And there are only 4 of those left today, only 4. And one of those is a copy that was done kind of from memory by one of the, I can't remember the guy's name, one of the Spanish priests forced one of the Mayans to go ahead and write it out as much as he could remember. So all that history is just gone. But we know a lot of very strange things happened as the Americas were being explored. And today, modern archaeology just denies a lot of that as exaggerations or just outright lies that took place in the 1400s and 1500s. But it really, the distortions in mainstream archaeology really started when the very first Indian mounds were found. And in the 1700s and 1800s, when these mounds were found, it was believed by the mainstream at the time, which, was not as scientific as they are today, but they believed that no one had been in the Americas until roughly 2,000 to 3,000 years before that. And they didn't believe that the Indians had built all of the mounds and the earthworks and the pyramids and so on that were found. They attributed it to a lost group of people, which some of them said, well, they must be white people. And therein lies one of the major issues that has swirled around the whole time. I know for certain that the ancestors of the Native Americans who exist today built the mounds, the earthworks, and they built the pyramids in Central and South America. However, the story we have been told about their ancestors is not true. They actually have a much richer heritage and a much older heritage that goes back to this group, the Denisovans, even Neanderthals, and it goes back probably an astonishing 300,000 years. And until in 1990, up to 1997, it was believed the Americas was totally uninhabited until roughly 11,000 BC. 11,000 BC. That's when they believed that the very first people came in. It was called the Clovis First Doctrine because the oldest artifacts were named Clovis, and it was a type of spear point, very large spear point, first found in Clovis, New Mexico. So from roughly 1930 or so until 1997, mainstream archaeology had this writ, and it was their truth. And the truth was that no one was in the Americas until 11,000 BC. The first people came in, they were called Clovis people. They were Siberian nomads, and they raced across North America, went down through Central America, and raced all the way down to the tip of South America, which is Tierra del Fuego. And they did that within a couple thousand years. So that is the Clovis First document. However, they forgot to take their Clovis points to South America. They never got further south than Panama, and very few Clovis points have been found to the south. Almost all of them were found in the Northeast, Canada, and in the extreme northeastern coastal states, which was always a conundrum that archaeology couldn't explain. Well, in 1997, that changed when mainstream archaeology accepted that, well, people had been here before that 11,000 BC, but only a few thousand years before. But that opened it broke the dam. It opened the floodgates, and then suddenly archaeologists started doing research at sites where they had previously dug and stopped when they hit the Clovis layer. Now that sounds strange. So imagine archaeologists are doing a dig and they are excavating a site, and then they dig down and they find relatively recent points, arrow points, and they find certain pieces of pottery. And then when they hit the Clovis points, they simply stopped digging. And from their own quotes in their own articles about this, they said, well, there's no use digging deeper because it would be a waste of time and money because we know there can't be anything else there. That is literally the idea that made them stop at the Clovis layer. Now, some of them said that they had dug lower than Clovis and found things, and they never reported it. So what happened in 97 is archaeologists started going back to all these Clovis sites and digging deeper, and they started finding more and more. And then I got interested in South America and started reading South American archaeology journals and South American archaeology books, and found that, well, South American archaeologists have accepted the fact that there were people in the Americas as long ago as almost 300,000 years. There's over a dozen sites in South America that date to 50,000 years ago. And that's astonishing if you think about it. 50,000 years ago. And there's just so much that we have been told that is simply not true. And it's kind of mind-boggling. This whole thing is mind-boggling. And the book Denisovan Origins is kind of an up-to-date synopsis of all that. It brings this new type of, not modern human, it is a homo sapiens, but it's not homo sapiens sapiens, which is us. It's a modern human that called Denisovans, which it was contemporaneous with the Neanderthals. They interbred with the Neanderthals. And many, many people listening to this carry both Denisovan and Neanderthal DNA. And the Denisovans were first discovered in 2010, and we know a lot of living Native Americans carry Denisovan DNA. So that kind of gets us to the point of, I guess, explaining it all and trying to tie it all together. But that's just kind of a background. Yes, I really believe the origins of humanity is what we're after. That's what Graham Hancock is really interested in. And that's what Andrew Collins and I are interested in. Andrew was the co-author of the book, Denisovan Origins. In fact, he wrote the bulk of it. Andrew is the expert in European history.
Right.
I came in with this book because I know a great deal about America's mound building culture and about South American research and genetics. Genetics plays a major role in all this. So that's kind of a summary to get it to the point, I guess, to where we could talk about some of these other book ideas.
So if you don't mind me asking, it's kind of an off the cuff question here, but I think some of the biggest questions are in our community. It's not just the fact that our history's kind of not right, but there's that whole question of, does it look like we were genetically seeded? Or, I mean, is there some kind of evidence of that, or is it just natural evolution, well, in your opinion?
That's not off the wall, man. That's not an off the wall question. It's a very, very interesting question. And anybody that gives you an answer to that is only giving you a belief. Right. Their belief based on the facts that they're looking at, because the truth, I even hate using that word, the truth is that we really don't know for certain. The human DNA is so complex, it's just mind-boggling to think that it happened by chance in the few million years that they say that it developed. Maybe 6 to 8 million is where they're going back now to where they think that we started developing. And it just doesn't seem possible. Human DNA has like 6 billion components to it of amino acids clicking together. And they create a ladder. And that it's a ladder of amino acids, and it's wound up. It looks just like a ladder. You know, you have two sides on the ladder and you have rungs. So think of 6 billion rungs, and this is in every single cell in our body, with the exception of red blood cells. I'm a scientist, so there's always exceptions. So we don't have them in red blood cells because red blood cells don't multiply. Now, that's called leukemia when they do. But anyway, you've got this ladder which is then twisted down. So if you take a rubber band, I usually do this and people can see it. It's the way I display this. So I'll take a rubber band and I'll start twisting it. And as this long rubber band gets twisted, it starts pulling together and it gets smaller and smaller, and it has little bumps and clumps in it as it pulls together. Well, that's exactly what human DNA does. And these little clumps and bumps are called genes. The genes are little discernible clumps and bumps, and each one of those controls some aspect of your body or bodily functions. And so human DNA, if you were to take that ladder and literally untwist it out of a single cell in your body. Now, you've got roughly 50, I guess somebody counted them, but they tell us that we have 50 trillion cells in our body. 50 trillion. They are about 1/10,000th of an inch in diameter, which is, it's all mind-boggling. Who the heck can even think of what 1/10,000th of an inch is? So in the inside of that 1/10,000th of an inch, taking up of that little cell, taking up less than 20% of the space in the inside is a nucleus, and in that nucleus is this ladder which has been twisted together into this little clump. If you were to untwist that ladder and lay it out flat, not stretch it, not break it, just lay it out flat, it would be 6 feet long in every cell in your body. That is human DNA.
Wow.
And that's literally what it is. And when you start thinking that, it's not an exaggeration. That is straight out of mainstream biology and genetics textbooks. When they sequence the human genome, they take that ladder and they sequence all of those rungs on the ladder. The rungs, again, are made out of 2 amino acids that click together. That's how it works. So it's 6 feet long. So technology has just come an incredible distance to be able to sequence that. And when they sequence it, they figure out what all those rungs are, what the amino acids are. Now, when we get a mutation, it's because the wrong amino acids have clicked together, or sometimes that rung is missing, and that can cause a genetic mutation. So that is human DNA. Could that have been done purely by chance and been created through evolution? We're told yes by mainstream biologists that yes, that is what happened. I don't know. It's to me, it's just mind-boggling, and
it's kind of one of those things where you look at it and you go, yeah, I mean, scientifically, we can't measure the proof that we know this, but come on, I mean, let's use I guess what you say, logic. Or reason would be a better word.
Reasoning,
right?
Yeah. Look at it, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. I am willing to think about the ancient alien and seeding of life. However, even if you go with that, even if you have that idea, you're still left with, well, where did they get it from? And where did the people that they got it from get it from? Did it, and it had to have a beginning somewhere. So you're still no matter where you go with this, you're still left with the same conundrum. How did it develop to begin with? Mm-hmm. Was it purely random? Was it just a random sequence of events where all this stuff came together accidentally, and voila, here we are? or was it created somehow? But even when you have it created, you still have to account for the creator. So therein lies the problem. So I don't know. I do believe Carl Sagan, actually, I don't know if you ever had a guest say this. Carl Sagan in 1962 published an article in a journal called Space and Science. That was the name of the journal. In the journal, Sagan calculated the odds of an alien civilization somewhere out there coming and visiting Earth in the past. Sagan said in this article it was an absolute certainty that aliens had visited Earth. He believed they were probably visiting remotely, that is, that they had some sort of technology. He didn't use the word drones because I don't believe drones were even around then, but they were like drone craft that came here. He estimated how many times they would have visited. He said starting around 100,000 years ago, they would have visited a lot faster and a lot more often. But he said they probably would have visited, now get this, 10,000 times they would have monitored Earth because they would have found us interesting, really interesting around 10,000 years ago. And in this article, Sagan said where archaeologists should look is in ancient Sumeria.
Interesting.
Now, very few people, you won't find skeptics talking about that much. They don't like to admit that the ultimate skeptic of all time, the guy who really started this kind of skepticism, Carl Sagan, believed that there probably were ancient aliens that visited Earth. Not only believed it, he said it was an absolute certainty that they had been here. So I do believe that it is possible. I do believe it's even probable, but I don't know beyond that. And I'm okay with not knowing. One of the things you got to do in this life is you have to eventually accept that there's a lot of things in life that you will never know, and you have to be okay with that. That's part of the psychology part of this. You have to learn to be okay with the unknown and not knowing.
And
knowing you'll never know.
Well, I'm bet under psychological evaluation as a void walker, I would be told that you're not okay because I want to know so bad, because that's the thing that's plaguing you the most. Look, we'll be right back, guys, with Dr. Greg Little. APmagazine.info is the website for reference tonight. You can ask your questions by calling in or in the Fringe FM chat. Stay with us.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Roop, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Roop.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Roop in the show, and I heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Roop.
Hey, my name Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
You're listening to the Fringe FM, and I'm Michael Deacon reminding you can find my show right here on the Fringe FM every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or by going to michaeldeacon.com. The choice is yours.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Dr. Greg Little is our guest tonight. You're listening to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. The show's here for you 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, right here on the Fringe FM. And then after the show, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. So we have programming, live and new programming all through the night for you here at the Fringe FM. And, you know, we were talking during the break, you know, you said I asked you about being on Coast, and I said, well, did you ever talk to Art Bell? And apparently you were on Coast when Art was doing Coast, or maybe it wasn't Coast, but you showed him how to do magic with a crystal. Is that right? Or something like that?
Yeah. Well, it was Coast to Coast, and it was in 2001, either 2000 or 2000, in the year 2000. And yeah, you know, it's interesting that some of the best conversation takes place in the breaks. I guess maybe we loosen up a little bit, and maybe you ought to record all that and give it to your listeners for a little extra money. But anyway, just saying. Art Bell was really interesting, and I went on that show to talk about the book Mound Builders. That was the main title, and it was about Edgar Cayce. And it was about what Edgar Cayce said about American Indian mounds and earthworks. And Cayce made a number of readings, psychic readings that included information on Indian mounds. And so I was asked by the Cayce organization to see how his readings matched up with what was currently known about Indian mounds. But anyway, so the book came out, and Art Bell had offered me to come on the show. And I went on and I started talking about how Native American shaman used crystals. Quartz crystals are really the best. One of the things I told him is that often in a very dark area like a cave, they would take quartz crystals and they would put them in a leather pouch, and you can grind them. And as you grind them, and you'll figure out why they're in the leather pouch in a minute. If you're in total darkness, you'll see little tiny sparks and balls of light coming out of that little leather pouch. Now, that is happening when these crystals fracture. And so I then told Art, I said, you can do something really spectacular with them. I said, if you have 2 quartz crystals that are fairly large, they don't have to be huge, and you can even use small ones. I said, what you do is you get yourself a really good pair of gloves, and you take these 2 quartz crystals. You have to not mind to kind of scuff them up a little bit. Go into your bathroom with these quartz crystals and the gloves, and fill your bathtub at least half full of water. Make sure you have the lights out, then turn all the lights out. You want it to be as dark can be. Then you put one of those quartz crystals in each hand. Of course, you have the gloves on, and stick your hands down in the water, both hands. And then at the bottom of the tub, rub those 2 quartz crystals together as fast and as hard as you can, and you will light up your bathroom. As long as you can keep rubbing those quartz crystals together, you will pretty much light up the bathroom to the extent where somebody in there could really see around. And It was right before a break. They had those long breaks on Coast to Coast. Mm-hmm. And so we came back from the break, and Art said in that voice of his, he said, well, I did exactly what you said during the break. And I said, really? And he said, yes. And he said, I had 2 really big quartz crystals, and I got a pair of gloves, and I put some water in the tub and turned the lights out. And he said, do you know what happened? And in my voice, which was kind of squeamish at the time, I said, it worked? And he said, yes, it did work. He said, I was shocked. He said, I had no idea that would happen. So we proceeded to discuss that about what caused it and so on. Of course, it's refraction in the water. The light is refracting, but what is causing the light is as those quartz crystals, little shards pop off, it is releasing electrons. And the truth is they're creating little tiny plasma balls, and it's known as the piezoelectric effect, which most people know that watches used to be quartz crystal watches, and they have a certain resonance, and they would keep really good time with that resonance. But quartz are believed, at least by Native American shaman, to be the most purified form of condensed spiritual energy. And now you take that a bit further. Water is flowing spiritual energy. Fire is released spiritual energy. Rocks are condensed spiritual energy, but not totally pure like crystals are. And soil is the most primordial form of spiritual energy. So, but quartz are clearly the most. And I know that, like in Arkansas, there's a conference held there every year, and it's held in Little Rock on purpose because Little Rock has these massive quartz crystal formations under it. But anyway, that's my little story with Art Bell, and I'm hoping some people will try that. And just make sure you wear the gloves. Don't not wear them, because you may very well cut your hands or get a little piece of a crystal shard stuck in them. So that's my advice.
Well, I'm definitely going to do that because that's cool, actually. But that's like
it is cool.
That's one of those life hack type things, right? So it's
well, sort of.
Yeah.
Actually, I got into that because of an interest in UFOs, believe it or not. My first book was in 1984. It came out, and it was a follow-up to Carl Jung's last book, which was about UFOs. The title was Flying Saucers. And it was kind of a scholarly look at what Carl Jung said about UFOs and some of the psychology of it and all. And in it, I talked about the plasma theories and piezoelectricity and so on, because some people, including me and some of my colleagues, believe that a lot of UFO reports and some of the strangeness, the paranormal stuff, is related to plasma formations that are intelligent. See, there, I have the Native American belief. I don't think these are just unintelligent energy forms that are created physically and then dissipate. I think they have an intelligence to them. So that's all another story. And that's actually something that Andrew Collins and I are working on now, a follow-up book to the Denisovan Origins book that looks into the shamanic beliefs and goes back in time to where we can try and figure out where these beliefs about various things in nature that the shamans believed in, where they came from. That's what we're looking at now. But again, another story. Yeah, we can go all different directions with this.
Well, I'm interested in the psychological aspect of things too, because what I'm fixing to start doing on the show is we're going to do like readings and stuff, and then we're going to have discussions just for a segment on the show. And I've cracked open Carl Jung's Red Book, which, I mean, that goes deep. I mean, that's a deep one, right? But I hear this year that the black books are coming out this year in 2020, which a lot of people have been waiting on.
Reissuing them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. Are they already out? Because I've looked everywhere for them and can't.
You can buy there's books called The Complete Works of Carl Jung.
And the black books are in there?
They're all there. Yeah, everything is available. It's just they're so expensive. I used to have a complete set, and when we moved, we downgraded. We actually got rid of 3,000 books, and we've only got like 3,000 left now, but we had an enormous book collection from years. But Carl Jung's complete works are available, and I would recommend go to a library. Go to a good university library, and they will have them there. And virtually any good university will have the complete works of Jung. Very interesting. Jung was into psychic stuff. That actually is what caused his split with Sigmund Freud. Well, there were other things, but the final thing was about psychic stuff. And Jung actually did a dissertation on a psychic, and that's all real interesting. And it was actually a person who thought she had visited other worlds. So, and that belief is really old too, about people that think they've been to other worlds. And Native Americans, of course, have mythology about beings from other worlds coming here, and star people. Depends which tribe you're getting the mythology from, because they call them different things. But it's absolutely fascinating. Now, the mainstream, we'll go back to where we started with this. The mainstream has always discounted and made fun of the mythology of Native Americans. And they did that up until about the year 1989 and 90, which is really interesting, because in 89 and 90, archaeology had a big change pushed upon it. And that change was called NAGPRA, N-A-G-P-R-A. And it was a federal law, and it stands for the Native American Grave Repatriation Act and Protection Act, NAGPRA. And it meant that they could no longer do excavations into anything that had a burial without getting permission from a variety of agencies, including whatever Native American tribal group had once had ownership of that land. So it virtually brought American archaeology and excavations to a standstill. So they had to find something else to do. So a group of archaeologists started in 1990 on a new project, and their project was to look at this old mythology from Native Americans that was collected. Actually, this mythology had been collected in the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s by, some of them were Catholic priests. Others were from what were called ethnographers. Most people aren't familiar with the term, but ethnographers were like early anthropologists. But they collected the beliefs that the Native American tribes had. And they wrote it all down. And there are literally hundreds of books, pamphlets, journals that were put out by these ethnographers that detailed what the Native Americans really believed about things, what their shamanic beliefs were, and all of their mythology. It was all detailed. But mainstream archaeologists poo-pooed it all. They ignored it up until around 1990. So when these archaeologists, they weren't just archaeologists, they were archaeologists and people that worked with symbols. Some of them were interested in legends, and anthropologists got together, and they started going through these old books, which, of course, the internet wasn't really around then. In 1990, it was barely around. And these books weren't even digitized until just recently. So they just kind of sat in libraries all over the place, unused. These massive books, the Bureau of Ethnology and the Bureau of American Ethnology, which are arms of the Smithsonian, they published a lot of these, and they're massive volumes. Some of them are 800 and 900 pages, and they have like 6-point type in them. So they have tiny little type. They're massive books. But in those, Native Americans talked about the mythology of the star people coming to visit Earth. They talked about giants that were here. Giants are something that we talk about in that book, Denisovan Origins. We're very interested in the tales of giants, which also the Europeans, when they came here, encountered the giants, and we haven't even gotten into that. But they also talked about, these books talked about the mythology of the soul and the death journey, and their ideas about where we go when we die. And to just kind of summarize that, they figured out what they really believed was that when we die, we have two souls. One of the souls is attached to the body, and it's physical, and it comes from the ground, basically, and has to be returned to the ground. The other soul is called the free soul, and it's what you would probably think of as a soul. That is, it has your memories and your personality. And that goes to the stars, and it starts a journey by going to Orion, and it's not really Orion's belt, it's Orion's nebula, which its real name is Messier 42. And it only makes this journey in the winter, so the soul actually makes a leap to Orion's nebula, and then it hops onto the Milky Way and goes to the north until it reaches another constellation, which is known as the Cygnus constellation, and that's where Andrew Collins comes in. Andrew is the person who came up with the importance of Cygnus to the ancient Egyptians, and really everybody, all these ancient cultures around the world. Cygnus is extremely important. It was seen as an eagle to Native Americans, and it was a judge, and the star Deneb, which is the brightest star in the Cygnus constellation, was seen as a portal out of the sky world to what they would call the other world, what we might call heaven. Long involved story, but that was all in these ancient mythology, which no one had ever written about or really known. The first publication came out around the year 2000 when they worked it all out. Nobody really realized it was all there. It was sacred knowledge that the Native Americans had. Now, when I say Native Americans, I mean these were mainly the mound building cultures. So they would be like the Iroquois tribes in the Northeast, through really the whole eastern half of the United States was the mound building culture. So it's all, that to me is just absolutely fascinating. And it shows that sequence of events. You had to have that law passed where archaeologists just couldn't go out and do excavations wherever they wanted. They had to find something else to do. So they decided to look into this area that they had often sort of degraded and said, well, it's useless looking at their mythology. They're just legends and they don't mean anything. But we now know that their legends did mean something. The one example is this with the giants. This idea of the giants pops up again and again in the legends of virtually every Native American tribe that exists, including the tribes in Central America and South America. It's everywhere. When the first Europeans came in, when they went to South America, there was a long series of these early explorers, beginning with Magellan. Magellan in 1520 went to extreme south, the southernmost tip of South America. And he landed in Tierra del Fuego, the land he called Patagonia, which means big feet. And it's because he encountered these people that he said were 10 feet tall. And this is little known. Magellan actually captured two of these giants. This is in his log. They captured two of these 10-foot tall giants, and they tried to sail back to Europe with them. And they both the giants got sick on the way over, and they dumped them overboard. And, of course, nobody believed them when they got back. But in 1525, a Spanish guy, captain named Garcia, was trying to do the same thing Magellan did, and that is find a way around South America to India. And he found a whole tribe that were 7 to 9 feet tall. Sir Francis Drake was next. I mean, we're not talking about people here who were prone to make up stories. Drake said there were whole tribes that were 7 to 8 feet tall in South America. And the last person that really talked about him was none other than Charles Darwin. Darwin went there in 1831, and he saw a few of them that were left. They were called the Ona and the Taluchi tribes, and he said that they had been exterminated. And he actually saw them being exterminated by the Spanish who were living in Patagonia at the time. And the Spanish were trying to get rid of all the indigenous people there because of two things. There was gold and silver there, and they found out it was great sheep herding country. So they wanted to get rid of all the indigenous population. But even that has been ignored by mainstream archaeology. Now they're looking at it a little more, but they just are saying, well, it can't be, therefore it isn't. So there's a whole lot of things here where the history of the Americas in particular, we really don't know, and we can't trust what we have been told. So I recommend people to look into all this for themselves. They don't have to take my word for anything. Look it up. Get involved in this and look at it if you're interested, because it's a really interesting topic, at least to me.
Yeah, the North Americas are like the biggest mystery, I would think, out of everything. You know, it's there's a lot of stuff, even here in Arkansas. I don't know if you're aware of the mounds and stuff we have here. It's we're not allowed to really do anything. I don't know what we can do as far as excavation goes. And then, you know, there was another guy that used to do a radio show that I really liked. You know, he was kind of a hardcore radio jock, more of an underground guy. It was Josh Reeves, and he talked about a rock wall in Texas and was really convinced that there was a structure underneath there. You know, so I don't know.
I'm familiar with Josh Reeves, and I'm familiar with Rockwall. Rockwall's been a place I've wanted to see. I really don't have any opinion on it right now. I'd want to really see it. I've read everything that's out there, and I really don't know what to think about Rockwall.
Well, well, shoot, we got to take a break here in a second. But you know, what really got me was somebody like, I know you're probably familiar with Manly P. Hall too, right? I mean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This guy comes along and throws so much esoteric info and occult info and historical info at the Freemasons that it jerks a knot in their head, and they make him an honorary Freemason because of it. And, you know, he discussed Atlantis, giants, things like that, magic even. A lot of the same things Cayce did.
You said a minute ago, you mentioned North America and the Americas. Graham Hancock's new book, which came out right before ours. In fact, ours was done first. We exchanged information with Graham while this was going on, while we were both writing our books. Graham Hancock says the New World was really the Old World. That is, the Americas probably were inhabited first. And it was that lost civilization, which, for lack of a better term, was Atlantis.
I see, that makes sense to me. But why have we not? It does to me too. I mean,
Atlantis is a dirty word in mainstream archaeology. I have friends in mainstream archaeology that some of them actually believe in Atlantis, and they believe in the version of Atlantis where, say, the Bahamas were part of it, which my wife and I spent 10 years investigating that in the Bahamas. A lot of the archaeologists believe it, but they can never, ever talk about it publicly. And we're not allowed to mention their names. I mean, I've just agreed to do that, and I've kept my word on it. But a lot of them do believe in it. But there is a lost civilization that existed. It was probably a maritime culture that operated for a long, long time, and it probably disappeared right around 10,000 BC or 11,000 some years ago when the Younger Dryas event occurred. It was destroyed. And a very recent article in Scientific American stated that a technological civilization on Earth, it really wouldn't take that long for it to absolutely disappear and not leave a single trace. We would never know it was here. For example, if everything on Earth simply stopped, if there were no humans, within 50,000 years, there would be nothing left of our civilization except what we built in stone. None of it there'd be no trace of us.
Right.
That's the point.
That's a very good point, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know what? We're going to get into this a little bit more, and I do see I missed some questions there in the chat. We'll be right back with Dr. Greg Little, and if you want to call in, you can. It's 1-800-588-0335. Also, you can text in at 501-777-5631. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Have you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754. For a discreet consultation.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Hey,
is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Dr. Greg Little is our guest tonight. apmagazine.info is the website you want to go to for your info on tonight's topics. That is the website for reference. Also, please don't forget to grab your shirt. Like if you haven't got a Lighting the Void t-shirt or hat, do so. And when you do, I need the picture because we're making a huge board of all the Void Walkers. So make sure you send those pictures in too. So Greg, I believe we have a caller on the line from looks like 618 area code, or go ahead and see what's on their mind. 618 area code, who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Pat. What's up, Doc? What's up, Joe?
What's up, Pat?
Hey, Pat. Hey there.
Hey, man, you brought up North America and history, so you just piqued my interest pretty good. Hey, what about the Egyptians being here a long time ago? You know, in the Grand Canyon, they say they have caves and found stuff. That's why people are not supposed to go down there. I want your thoughts on that, and then also the Viking burials that they found on the East Coast. So if you could elaborate a little bit on that, I appreciate it.
Man, that is a great question. I love that. That thing about the Egyptians, and you still there, Pat? Did he hang up?
No, he's still here. Pat, you're there, right?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I may ask you something back. Okay, so in the I believe it was 1909, the Arizona Republic newspaper published an article. And it was their reporter supposedly went to a hotel there and met with a guy, and the guy had a wagon load of material that he said he had gotten out of a cave in the Grand Canyon. I'm trying to remember all the details of that. I actually put a chapter in a book about that. And I wrote and put out a press release on it some years ago. When I say some years, probably about 5 years ago. And the man said that he worked with the Smithsonian, and he had done this trip into the Grand Canyon where they found this massive cave. I'm calling it a cave because it had a little opening like a cave. But when he went in, it was filled with giant rooms that had been carved in. Some of them would be like the size of a modern gymnasium. I'm not exaggerating. So he went into this, and he said there were halls that went off of this giant room, and there were little rooms and niches up and down these halls, and they were filled with artifacts that he didn't use the word Egyptian, but he said they were Oriental in nature, whatever that means. And the old Egyptians were Orientals in that time. It's not an appropriate term to use anymore, I suppose. But anyway, that's the story. It was, I believe it was 1909 or 1919, just can't remember. So it sat like that for years. Then David Childress wrote about it, and it got real popular for a while. No one, however, could find any evidence of this man who said he had worked with the Smithsonian or had been in the Grand Canyon. The Smithsonian was asked about it by Childress. And by the way, I asked the Smithsonian about it too when I was writing a book that included that. And they said the same thing each time, and that is no man with that name has ever worked with the Smithsonian, ever. I'm going to shuffle around here in a minute and try and find the name and get all these details here. So it seemed to be just something that was lost in time. Nobody knew the truth of it. Smithsonian said it had to be a hoax. Mainstream archaeologists said it was a hoax. And then in 1993 or 4, two archaeologists working in Arizona for the Arizona Department of Parks and Recreation were at a place called Cayce, and they were employed to try and find areas at this site, Hohokam site, called Cayce to expand it to where they could make the park area bigger for visitors. And they went up the sides. Now, this is not in the Grand Canyon, but it's not that far from it. They went up the sides. It had sheer cliffs around it, so they went up the side walls, and they found this plant that shouldn't have been in this place, a bush, and they pulled it aside, and there was a tiny little opening that they had to crawl through, and they went in. And inside this tiny little opening, it opened up into a huge, perfectly carved room about the size of a modern gymnasium. And they walked in, they went in, of course, they had to have lights with them, and they found it had hallways and little side doors and niches and all that, and perfectly carved. They then reported it. They reported it at a conference. That's how I found out about it. They did a conference report on it. And I actually talked to these guys, or one of them, that did this, and he said they were told by the state that they could not give the exact location, that they could not say what was found inside this, they couldn't talk about it, and they were told they shouldn't have ever even given this report at a conference. They gave a talk at a conference. But the description was exactly the same as that found by the guy who claimed he was with the Smithsonian back in 1909. Now, I then started looking through Smithsonian publications, and eventually I found the name of this guy, and it's Dr. Jordan, that's his name. It just popped in my head. I found a Smithsonian publication that talked about a fellow by the name of Dr. Jordan who had gone down the river, the Colorado River, for the Smithsonian, and had written a number of publications about it. I asked the Smithsonian, why did you say there's never been a Dr. Jordan with you? That one they didn't answer. I published there's books that are out by the skeptical archaeologists that say there's never been a Dr. Jordan that worked for the Smithsonian, yet there was. Now, why they denied it is beyond me. It's just pure stupidity. But what I wrote was this, and what I think happened is this. I think that whoever this guy was knew that Jordan was there in that area then, and I think this guy actually looted Cayce, and I think that's where he got whatever artifacts he actually took illegally. And he told the reporter he had gotten it from the Grand Canyon, but he actually got it from one of the tributaries of the Colorado River at this place called Cayce. That's what I believe. But anyway, the story does exist. A lot of people have called it Egyptian, but in the actual article that was published in the Arizona Republic, it said it was Oriental. The other thing that you brought, have you ever heard any of that before that I just said? You still there?
Yeah. The Colorado thing, yeah, I did hear about that because I've got friends in Colorado.
Okay, all right. Well, the second part about the Vikings, that is, and the Norse actually, I guess, that is very controversial. Personally, I believe the Norse and Vikings got much further into the Americas than mainstream archaeologists will admit to. I think the Kensington runestone may very well be legitimate. Of course, like a lot of people, I've been there. Scott Walter is the guy who really has studied that probably more than anybody. And as soon as you start saying that you believe that the Norse were anywhere other than Canada, you are considered fringe, and mainstream archaeologists will attack you. But I think there's a lot of evidence that they probably were in North America, a lot more than what anybody accepts in the mainstream. So that's pretty much my answer. Great question, though. I love that question about the Colorado and the Egyptians. That's very cool.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for your
now,
call.
has there been any other? Sorry.
Well,
has there been any other hieroglyphs or anything from Egyptians or any other Asians that are in any caves or anything in North America?
Yeah. Arizona has had several areas where there's a zodiac.
I know we got the Hopis and stuff, but I've heard that other tribes have found stuff.
Yeah.
Our Indians from North America have found caves that were older than them. You know what I'm saying? They found stuff.
Yes. There are areas in Arizona. They're not in the Hopi lands. Of course, Hopi is in the middle of the Navajo Nation. And the Navajo Nation actually takes up the whole four corners and is part of Utah and Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico. And I actually spent 10 days out there about a month ago. But if you go all the way south and you get to Albuquerque and you go a little bit further to the west than from Albuquerque, there are several mountains that have these stones that have what some people have said are Egyptian carvings, not exactly hieroglyphs, but Egyptian carvings. And also some that appear to be Hebrew. They're very controversial, but they do exist. And
that's interesting because the Hebrew has been known, like the modern Hebrew, if you look at it, and I've looked at this through the Magician's Companion too, is they also have been called like the Babylonian flame letters. They're really close. Like this language in the occult world, the Hebrew language is super magical, and I think it's got a bigger background, like a much further reach than we think it does as far as history goes, you know?
Well, it probably does. It does. You know, we even talk about it as being a writing. It's actually, they're symbols. They're symbols that are letters, but they also they have a deep meaning aside from just being a letter. So they're like, every one of them is a double, and some of them are triple entendres. That is, they have 2 and 3 different meanings. And you can put the combinations of these symbols together, and yes, they form words, but they have a hidden meaning encoded in them. And there's a whole study of that, and that it actually is beyond me. I'd rather find a stone somewhere with carvings on it and try to decipher it than try to look at Hebrew and figure it out. It is just, Hebrew is amazing to me. And you're right.
It is fascinating. Pat, thanks for your call. I got to get to this other call, but I really do appreciate your call, man. Those are good questions, really good questions. Thank you.
It is.
All right. So one more phone caller here. Then I want to get into what we were talking about earlier with how do you say it again? Denisovans. Denisovans. That's right.
Yeah.
604 area code. I appreciate your wait. You're on the air with Dr. Greg Little. Who are we speaking with?
It's Kevin from Vancouver.
Hey, Kevin. What's up, man?
I was just wondering if there's anything to the civilization of Mu that was supposedly around at the same time as Atlantis. Is that a
darn interesting? Another interesting one. Okay, Mu and Lemuria. Mu is spelled M-U, and it's also known as Lemuria. Mu, according to Edgar Cayce, Mu pretty much was destroyed around 50,000 BC. And according to Cayce, and some of the people like Theosophy talks about Mu and Lemuria also, and they pretty much have the same dates, around 50,000 years ago. And it was located in the South Pacific. And according to Cayce, those people that survived it migrated to South America. Now, what's interesting, we haven't gotten into really the book Denisovan Origins much, and I did mention to begin with what South American history was, but we know now that South America had a large influx of people from the South Pacific around the year 50,000. There's a whole bunch of sites that date to 50,000. And even more interesting, in the center of Brazil, in the Brazilian Amazon, a very remote tribe today that still exists had their DNA tested. And they are from what is called Australasia, which is New Zealand and Australia. That is where they came from. The idea here, we know there was a southern route. And the southern route means that if you got on a raft in Australia or New Zealand, and you were in the southernmost part of it, you simply got in a raft, you would drift toward the east, and you would go along the coast of what is Antarctica, and then you would turn north, and you would hit the southern tip of Chile, and you would go right up the coastal Chile, and then about the time that you got to Peru, you would turn to the west and then float on out toward Hawaii. And that is the way that the southern route works. Now, it would take you 100 days of simply floating to get from, say, New Zealand to the middle to Peru. And it takes a very hardy person, but that's just plain floating. So anyway, there is real evidence that people came into South America. In fact, it's in their museums. They have a completely different view of ancient history than North American archaeologists do. What they have down there is heresy to North American archaeologists.
Heresy.
Now, South America
is that bad,
heresy.
huh?
I'm using that term on purpose because it was a heresy to deny that North America was first. Then South American archaeologists have literally written that North American archaeologists see the idea that North America was inhabited first as a prize. And it was heresy, and I'm using that word because archaeologists have used the word, to deny that. South American archaeologists in their museums show a huge arrow coming from the area of Australia and New Zealand, curving along this southern route, Antarctica, and then coming to the north when it hits South America and occupying it. As early there in the museums, you'll see it say around 50,000 years ago. But there's very clear evidence now it was far earlier than that. In Mexico, there's evidence that it's almost 300,000 years ago. So,
wow. This is fascinating, man.
Well, it is. There's evidence that Mu or Lemuria, something existed. Yes, absolutely. And it's like lack of a better term. What do you call it? What do we call the lost civilization that was a maritime culture that was probably all over the world 10,000 years ago? Well, Plato called it Atlantis. But Atlantis is the A word, is a dirty word in American archaeology. They call it pseudo-archaeology and pseudoscience. But the truth is, there's very clear evidence that something existed, some lost civilization existed. We just don't know a great deal about it.
Well, Kevin, does that answer your question? Do you have any other last questions before?
No, it's fascinating, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Appreciate it very much.
Gotta love our Canadian folks up there. Kevin, he's been listening for a while too.
Right.
So let's get into this. Denisovans, yeah.
Okay, the Denisovans. The name I know is bizarre. And some people call it Denisovans because they're trying to the real term is Denisovans. Okay. So it's spelled like Denisovan, and it is a branch of archaic humans that developed as long ago as 700,000 to 800,000 years. And they were contemporaneous, or they existed alongside Neanderthals, but they were a completely different branch of humanity. They were first discovered in the year 2010. So we have only known about them for about 10 years. They were discovered in a place in Siberia, which is part of Russia, and it was a cave where they were first found. Now, the cave was being excavated by Russian archaeologists, and they went through layers of fairly modern habitation. down through ancient habitation, and they kept going. When they found Neanderthals like 30, 40,000 years ago, they kept digging. And then at roughly the 50,000 year layer, they found a finger bone and they found a tooth. And then eventually they found a lot more. They found a lot of artifacts. They were lucky because they first tested the tooth for a type of DNA called mitochondrial DNA. And so they first tested it for this, and mitochondrial DNA is known, I guess, to commonly as maternal DNA. You only get it from your mother, but it's not the same DNA that's in your cells, like I talked about earlier. It's not human nuclear DNA. But anyway, they tested the mitochondrial DNA, and they found that it was unlike any modern human DNA and totally unlike the DNA in the Neanderthals. So they knew they had a different species here. They had something very different. Well, luckily, they were able to sequence the human DNA in it, the nuclear DNA, which again, remember, it's all those billion bits of amino acids clicking together, and it's remarkable, but they were able to do that. And they found that what they had was a hybrid. And the hybrid was from this version they called the Denisovans, and I'll explain why they called them that, with Neanderthals. So it was half Denisovan, half Neanderthal. Now, since then, they know what the complete Denisovan DNA was. So they called them Denisovans because the cave where they were excavated had been inhabited by a monk by the name of Denis. And it was known as the Cave of Denis. So they called them the Denisovans. That's how they got their name. And it's just like Clovis. Clovis points were found in Clovis, New Mexico, so they called them that. And Folsom points were found in Folsom, New Mexico, so they called them that. And that's the way the Denisovans are. So they are an extinct. Go ahead.
I wonder how much, you know how everybody's doing the genealogy stuff where you can send your DNA in? Do you think that let's say that everybody actually did that. I know that it's controversial. People don't want to send their DNA in and stuff, but let's say everybody actually did that. I wonder if that would help this research at all. Do you think?
Well, the National Geographic actually did have a study they did doing exactly what you're saying, and they were the only ones that were testing human DNA for Denisovan traces. And that's how they found out that modern Native Americans carry about 3%, 1 to 3% of Denisovan DNA. They still have some of that in them, and they still have some Neanderthal in them. I've had it done. I have a lot of Neanderthal in me, which my wife says explains a lot. But it would help if a lot of people did it. But for reasons that I don't even understand, National Geographic quit the study. They stopped doing that, and they no longer test for Denisovan DNA. I'm not sure why. I do not know, and I haven't been told why. But it would probably be very useful. I'm asked all the time about the mitochondrial DNA. There is a type, the DNA is divided into what are called haplogroups, which are very distinctive types. And the word haplogroup simply means a distinctive type. But mitochondrial DNA is divided into roughly 42 main types, and then there are some small types. And we know where all of these come from. We know when they originated. We know when they mutated, because they started out as one. There was an Eve, and they call her mitochondrial Eve. She probably existed 200,000 years ago, maybe 250,000 years ago. And she's thought to be the first thoroughly modern human female. And so she passed her mitochondria along to her offspring. And then her daughters passed theirs along to their offspring. And all DNA, I mean, this is complicated. I guess we have a half hour left. It would take more than that to explain how all this occurs. But DNA mutates. DNA splits all the time. And mitochondrial DNA splits all the time too, because it's producing more of these little mitochondria in your cells. Mitochondria are little organelles that are in your cells. And those organelles consume glucose or sugar. And in the process of consuming that glucose, they excrete a type of energy called ATP, adenotriphosphate, and that's the real energy that we use. You hear all the time that we burn sugar or burn glucose. Well, that's only partly true. The mitochondria do it, and the mitochondria are actually a type of vestigial bacteria that live within our cells. And as a bacteria, they multiply on their own. They are not human DNA. It's just simply DNA found in humans because the bacteria that live within us, they're in us and they multiply on their own. But they create mutations on a regular basis. And that regular basis is believed to be, about every 5,000 years it mutates or so. That's an average. Human DNA doesn't mutate quite that fast, but the mitochondria do. So as they mutate, they create mini Eves, like Adam and Eve. The first female to have a mutation is called a mini Eve. Very complicated stuff.
Wow.
But there is a type. There's a type of DNA, of mitochondrial DNA, called haplogroup X, which was actually the fifth one found.
We got to take a break. I want to leave off right there, Greg. We'll be right back. We're just going to take our news break. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
This is Mallorca's 45, fan of the Fringe FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Southern California, this is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Artificial intelligence learns to identify cancer in mammograms. An international team, including researchers from Google Health, designed and trained a computer model on X-ray images from nearly 29,000 women. The algorithm outperformed 6 radiologists in reading mammograms. Unlike human experts who had access to the patient's history, the AI only had the mammograms to go on. The results showed that the AI model was just as good as the current double reading system of 2 doctors. And it was actually superior to spotting cancer than a single doctor. The reduction of false negatives is 2.7% where cancer is missed. A university in India will now offer a 6-month course that teaches doctors how to treat people that claim to see or be possessed by ghosts. The existence of the program does not confirm the existence of ghosts, officials say, but it will focus on psychosomatic disorders, which are often confused with paranormal occurrences. The university will be the first in the country to offer such a course that would teach doctors about the Ayurvedic remedies to treat ghost-related ailments. Courses begin in January. With space becoming big business, the U.S. Department of Commerce is developing its own estimate of the size of the space industry to measure space's role in the economy. Studies and reports have offered a range of definitions of what industries are included, as well as how to account for government versus commercial space activities. Those estimates and projections for future growth have led some to predict the space economy to be worth at least $1 trillion within 20 years. U.S. government officials have frequently talked about efforts to create a $1 trillion space economy. More than 220 terracotta warriors have been unearthed during the 3rd excavation at the mausoleum of the first Chinese emperor. The newly discovered ranks are providing new insights into the army of the first Chinese emperor. They are offering new evidence on how his army was organized and structured. It can also help researchers to understand how he was able to conquer a great number of states over a large geographical area. And it is believed that even more terracotta warriors will be found in the mausoleum in the future. A Mayan palace emerges from the Yucatan jungle. Researchers from the National Institute of Anthropology and History have confirmed the finding of a Mayan palace in the Yucatan. The 55-meter structure is being excavated and conserved together with 4 other buildings in the pre-Hispanic Mayan city. Once buried in the jungle with overgrowth, the site was discovered in 1939 by American archaeologist Willis Andrews IV. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM, and thank you so much for listening.
What's up, Joe? Hey man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Very, very informative show tonight with Dr. Greg Little, who's our guest tonight. Dr. Greg Little, apmagazine.info is the website you want to go to. And, yeah, this has been a pretty informative. It's one of those compelling, super compelling and informative shows. We've talked about DNA, history, Atlantis, psychology, you know, some really cool stuff during the breaks. And I think Pat, I believe, is on the line, and he's just got one more quick question for you, just real quick, he wanted to ask, and I told him that he could. So go ahead, Pat.
Hey, the Denisians, or however you say it, and I mess it up every time. My question to you is, aren't they starting to speculate now that they were the ones that built the pyramids originally, the main one?
Well, there may be somebody who has speculated that the Denisovans, if the pyramid was built when the mainstreamers say it was built, couldn't have been built by the Denisovans. It could have been built by their descendants, perhaps. But the Denisovans went extinct. The type that was in Asia and Europe went extinct around 45,000 years ago. And the ones that were in Melanesia and Micronesia went extinct maybe 25,000 years ago. At least that's what they say. So if the pyramids were built, say, in the 3000 BC time frame, which that would even be early for them, the answer would be no, it couldn't be Denisovans, but it could be their ancestors, their descendants. And that's what we say that the people who, that's what this book Denisovan Origins is about. We believe that their ancestors, when they came into the Americas, they were the giants of old. And they were the giants that have been pulled out of America's mounds. And this is weird, but the Smithsonian from 1881 to 89 opened about 2,000 mounds, and they pulled over 17 skeletal remains out of the mounds that were 7 feet tall and more. And then archaeologists have pulled out another 20 or so from mounds that were 7 to 8 feet tall. All done by the mainstream archaeologists and so on. They are The only DNA that's been done on those skeletal remains is the mitochondrial DNA, and about half of them that have been tested have this, what I called haplogroup X. And I was getting to that before we went on the break.
Right.
And haplogroup X means literally it was the fifth one discovered. When they discovered it, the geneticists were surprised. They found it in the Pima Indian tribe. And they called the four different types they found A, B, C, and D, thinking that was going to pretty much be it. But then a fifth one popped up that they called X, as in unknown. And the reason is when they found A, B, C, and D, they decided that now they can prove that Native Americans came from Siberia with genetics. So they went to Siberia and they tested Siberian nomads, and they found they had A, C, and D, but they didn't have B. And then they found B in the South Pacific, which B, by the way, is what's found mainly in South America in the ancient remains there. So that I know I'm getting complicated here, but haplogroup X popped up, and it was called X as in unknown because they couldn't find anywhere else in the world that had X. Now, since then they have, but haplogroup X remains the only one that has no known origin. They don't know where it came from. It is heavily distributed around the Mediterranean. It's a different type, and it's in Native Americans. It's also found in the Orkney Islands of Great Britain. But haplogroup X is really interesting. It's probably the remnants of the Denisovans. They probably account for the tales of giants, including those in South America, and the many tales of giants that the Native Americans had in their mythology in North America. There's dozens of tales of them. But to answer the question again, no, it couldn't be the Denisovans themselves unless the pyramids are far, far older than we have been led to believe. Even like Robert Schoch will take it back to maybe 10,000 BC. But the Denisovans weren't around then, though their ancestors, or I'm sorry, their descendants were around then.
Man, this
Does that
is
help?
like, yeah, this is so like, and this is mind-boggling to me. I've never went back honestly and listened to a whole show of mine because I can't stand listening to myself. But this is going to be one of those where I'm going to have to go back and listen to a few times and really dig into this myself because there's a lot here, man. You could probably talk about this for hours, couldn't you?
Well, I have talked about it for hours, many times.
So,
but let's. Can I deal one more thing here?
Yeah,
okay, he brought
sure.
up Egypt. All right, so I've been to Egypt. I've been to a lot of sites. I've been all through Central America. My wife and I actually did an expedition in South America, like those old 1800s people would go to a really unexplored place that's really dangerous. Just a couple of you go and you hire a big crew to go, and we did do that. Some of that has been on documentaries on History Channel, and maybe I think bits of it were on National Geographic too. But okay, so people are really impressed with Egypt. Egypt has 106 known pyramids. The earliest pyramid dates to maybe 3000 BC, and it's not really a pyramid, it's a mound. North America, one site, Cahokia, Illinois, which is near East St. Louis, Illinois. Regular St. Louis, which is in Missouri, is right on the other side of the river. Cahokia has 120 mounds. Now, people think of mounds as tiny little heaps of earth, and there's a burial in them. Well, some of them are, but Cahokia has a mound called Monk's Mound. It is as tall as a 10-story building even today. It's 100 feet tall. It sits on 14 acres. It is an acre larger than the Great Pyramid at Giza, which is the tallest pyramid in the world. The Cahokia Mound is so big, it's a truncated pyramid. That is, it's formed just like a pyramid. The word truncated means it has a flat top. In 1987, over 5,000 people gathered on the top of it and even had extra room. That's how big this is. But there's 120 mounds at Cahokia alone. In America, Let's talk about Columbus, Ohio. You go 50 miles east from Columbus, you get to Newark, Ohio. Newark, Ohio has the world's most extensive and complex earthworks and mound formations in the world. People who have gone there and look at this, who say, I'll give you an example. Andrew Collins, the co-author of this book, Denisovan Origins. Andrew went there with us in 2004. Andrew at that time lived in the middle of Avebury in England, the largest stone circle in the world. He was living in Avebury. We took him to this place and as kind of a secret way got him to it to look at it. And we went up the sides of this earthwork, and he stood there and was dumbfounded and saying, how in the world does nobody know about this? There is nothing in the world that compares to this formation in Newark, Ohio. It is a wall. There is an earthwork. Think of like a levee, a river levee. But it forms a perfect circle that encloses 30 acres, then connects to an octagon made out of earthen walls that has 8 sides that encloses 50 acres. There's a truncated pyramid at each of the sides of the octagon. It then connects with a roadway that is lined by walls of earth that goes 2 miles to a circle that is identical to Avebury in England, that has a moat that is 8 feet deep on the inside and a wall of earth that is 10 feet around, a perfect circle enclosing 30 acres. It then connects to another road, a perfect straight line with walls of earth on both sides. When I say a straight line road, think of an interstate highway, and then you put a wall of earth on both sides, and you run it 56 miles to an identical formation to the south in Chillicothe, Ohio, where there are about a dozen of these formations in Chillicothe. All that was built in 500 BC. The old 500 BC, think about that.
Jeez,
a lot of
incredible.
This stuff still remains. It is a golf course. They've made it into a golf course in Newark, Ohio. It's called Mound Builders Golf Course, Mound Builders Golf Club. You can go see it. It's a National Historic Site, and it's just overwhelming. These things are everywhere in North America. And people just don't know about it, and they don't appreciate it. And some of that is just suppression of some of the incredible things that Native Americans have done. There's loads of these. There are thousands of sites like this in America. So I encourage people to go visit these sites and go into the museums at a lot of the sites and buy some stuff and give them a little bit of money. American archaeology sites need to be recognized and need to be supported. That's my little soapbox. I try to always end with that.
Oh, it's a pretty good soapbox, actually.
There you go.
It's enough. I mean, it's not like you're selling this. It's almost like it's getting to the point where it's kind of ridiculous that we're not looking at this information, and that you're bringing up stuff too that I think a lot of us don't really know about. And I think there is an agenda to hopefully somebody, I don't know who it is, but it wants this stuff to go away. They don't want it talked about. You know, they don't want this to keep going.
I think we have guilt about what our ancestors did with Native Americans. I think there's some guilt about that. I think there's fear about it all too. If anybody deserves reparations, it's Native Americans. I mean, if you go to some of the reservations, we've been to a lot of them, spent time on a lot of them. The ones out west, people have heard of the Badlands. I'm sure you've heard of the Badlands. You know, there's been a lot of cowboy movies made about the Badlands. And what people think is, it got its name because that's where all the bad people went. No, the Native Americans were forced to live on the Badlands, which they turned into reservations. And it was called the Badlands because the land is bad. It's bad land. Nothing grows and there's no water. So we kept forcing the Native Americans onto this worse and worse land where they couldn't survive, where they had to then survive on what was handed to them by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now, I'm talking about It goes on some in modern times, but it was a lot worse back when we were literally trying to exterminate all Native Americans. And they were almost successful in doing it. There was a time when our government had the policy that the only good Indian is a dead Indian, and they wanted to make all Indians good Indians. What? We really had that policy once. And so I think we have kind of a racial guilt about that. And it's, when you feel guilty about things, often you want to not think about them.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah. When you feel guilty, and not only do, guilt causes people to lash out too. And it does. I've seen that happen in the media, where people will lash out once they're called out on something. And it's like, you just gave yourself away. But then again, it's all so buried. And how many years do you think you've been studying this for now? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I know exactly. I got into archaeology because of dreams that I had in 1983. That's when I started. And I started writing this Mound Encyclopedia in 1983. And so that started a quest for both my wife and I. We started visiting Indian mounds, and my occupation was such that I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. So we spent months and months traveling, going to every Indian mound we could go to. And my goal at the time was to make a pictorial history of all of the mounds that were still in existence. And that culminated in the publication of that Encyclopedia of Native American Mounds and Earthworks that I updated once already. So 83 is really when I started it, and it's been an obsession since then. And archaeologists tell me there's nobody that's alive, and probably nobody that ever lived that's been to more Indian mounds than I have been to, and my wife. And that's probably true. It doesn't mean I'm a better expert than they are. I have no degrees in archaeology. I don't ever say I'm an archaeologist, but I have taken courses in it. And I do have a doctorate and a master's degree. So whatever. They wouldn't write it. Yeah, whatever. You write what you're interested in. And that I became fascinated with that because of dreams. And in those dreams, Native Americans were there. And that's just kind of the way it went. I started out with the interest in Carl Jung. That's how I really started. And then it transferred over to mounds. What can I say?
Wow. See, yeah, that's kind of like a synchro, because we just started getting into Carl Jung on the show now. One last question on the text-in line here. What does Dr. Little think about the Federal Antiquities Act? And does he think the restriction should be lifted in order to spur further exploration? Federal law holds total sway on treasure trove as it stands.
Oh, okay. Well, treasure trove, that I'm asked that all the time. My wife and I spent, over 10 years, we spent 25 weeks in the Bahamas exploring in part of Florida. And when I say exploring, we used our own boat. We had 3 side scan sonars. We had an archaeologist go with us half the time. We worked under an archaeological permit. We were searching for any archaeological ruins that were underwater in the Bahamas. That led us to find 31 crashed planes, by the way, including several that were Bermuda Triangle planes. There's a great show on National Geographic with us where we found a really important plane. But anyway, the laws are really restrictive on anything that's in the water. I don't like the laws about treasure on land and having to pay, you have to pay income tax to IRS for anything that you find, technically. I think they're very restrictive, but I'm not a treasure hunter, so I don't really have any opinion on that. I am very much in favor of the NAGPRA law, where you can't just willy-nilly dig into burial mounds. I'm glad that law is there because that law has really denigrated Native Americans, or allowing people to dig has denigrated them. And I'm glad we have that law. But I don't have too much of an opinion on antiquities. I just know that it restricts what you can do in water, and that has affected me over the years. We actually stopped in the Bahamas because the Bahamas changed all their laws about underwater archaeology there. So we just stopped. We can still go under a film permit, but we don't do it under archaeology anymore.
Right.
That's my answer to.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the question on the text in line. So what do you got next? I mean, you've done a ton of radio shows, you've done TV, you've wrote quite a few books, co-authored quite a few books. Well, are you working on anything now, or what's going on right now?
Andrew Collins, and of course I'm still active in my profession.
Sure.
But Andrew and I are working on a new book. It is a follow-up to Denisovan Origins, and it's really about it kind of is about UFOs, but it's about the power that is out there, intelligence in the universe, earth lights in the sky, what shaman are trying to contact, how shaman do it. I've looked very, very deeply into Native American shamanic beliefs about the power, whatever it may be. Medicine is power. So that's what we're working on. We already have a book contract on that, and we'll be done definitely by December, if not before. But I travel pretty frequently, and our next stuff is going back to some Native American reservations to do a little more research, is the way to put it. So that's what's next. And but I'm happy. Things are good. I have no complaints. I say that all the time. I can complain about nothing.
Yeah, that's well, you're full of information, man. I mean, I'm getting just tons and tons of questions here. So look, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I hope we can do it again someday with your busy schedule. But you know what? I got to say, Dr. Little, like Greg, sorry, you told me to call you Greg in the beginning.
Cool. Yeah.
I got to say that I think all of us are kind of glad that there are folks like you out there that are still doing this. They're still just digging in to find this stuff out for us, because I think we just need more people doing it. You know, that's what I think.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much. And you're doing quite a service with this too.
Yeah.
You're doing a really good service. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And hey, we'll do it again. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys go check out the website, apmagazine.com. Also give them a follow on social media and Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, by the way?
Dr. Greg Little 2.
Dr. Greg Little 2 on Twitter.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yep. Thanks for coming on the broadcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
More coming up, guys. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on The Fringe FM.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm, or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheT.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheT.com.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Paranormal News, I'm Brad Bernards.
FBI, FAA, and U.S. Air Force are investigating a mystery in the skies over Colorado and Nebraska, where swarms of drones have been spotted.
As heard on the CBS Evening News, on a desolate dirt road just north of Lyman, the sky is lit by stars and a waxing crescent moon. Then, a small set of red and white lights blink rapidly, punctuating the rural Colorado landscape. The aerial object travels briskly across the sky at several hundred feet above the fields and wind turbines. Colorado's eastern plains are ground zero for one of the strangest phenomena in the United States. Since mid-December, a legion of unexplained drones with 6-foot wingspans have flown the night skies over at least 9 counties in eastern Colorado and western Nebraska, inspiring wild conspiracy theories, perplexing agencies, and confounding citizens from around the world.
That is so creepy. It's just hovering there. It's really unnerving to be out there by yourself and you see these flashing lights near your home. You want to know what it is and why it's out there.
Witness Jennifer Rollins, courtesy of CNN. Colorado's drone mystery is expanding. The mysterious aircraft are now being spotted on the outskirts of Metro Denver. Dozens of Castle Rock and Parker residents have reported seeing the large drones hovering over their cities for the past several days. Is it aliens or is it the government? Welcome to 2020, where the real question is, what's the difference? And does it even matter? It's already pretty obvious it's going to be a weird year in just about every department, including the skies. We've already had mysterious packs of drones in the sky over Colorado, and now a couple of videos have surfaced showing large triangular UFOs floating in the sky over Texas and New York.
What are those?
That's courtesy of Stephanie Westerfield on YouTube, and that was recorded during the New Year's Eve fireworks. The triangle UFO is not a new phenomenon. It's one of the more well-known UFO shapes. It's also the UFO voted least likely to be aliens. Some speculate that the big triangle with 3 lights on it is the secret TR-3B spy plane. Is that what this is? Read the news at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of the fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Every Saturday at midnight here on the Fringe FM, you can join me, Stephen Canby, the host of the Midnight Hour Show. On my show, we explore paranormal topics with a skeptical view. We search for evidence. We search for proof. We search for the truth. Because who better than me, my friends, a magician, a man trained in the art of deception and misdirection? Who better than me to investigate for you some of the greatest mysteries on planet Earth? And I hope you will join me every Saturday night here on the Fringe FM at midnight Eastern Standard Time for the Midnight Hour Show, 9 p.m. Pacific. I want you to join me here every Saturday night at midnight for an incredible journey. Consider yourself invited. Brand new episodes of The Midnight Hour Show, available exclusively every Saturday night here on the Fringe FM. Consider yourself invited.
Join us on
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book Occult Arcana will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
No, listen, Kurt, here you are right here.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
Yeah. Kurt Green, everybody. So what's up, brother? How you been?
What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing great, hanging in there. A new year. I haven't talked to you since this 2020. I hope things are much clearer this year. 2020 vision.
Yeah.
We're a lucky generation to be able to go through 2020. There'll never be another for another millennial or whatever. My goodness.
Well, you know what that I really like about 2020 is that it reminds me of the 1920s. The 1920s is like, that's my favorite era, man. That's where I get all this. Like, if I could just play music on the show, that's probably what I would play, like that old swing band, music, old school stuff. When the radio first came out, that's what I would play.
Yes, I'm amazed. I never knew you I heard you start playing that old music recently. I never realized that you liked that kind of music. So cool. Roaring 20s now. The one thing about the 20s, though, that's when the stock market plunged way down. Everybody was out of work. It was bad back in the 20s. So Not to scare anybody, but
Well, it was right before the Depression. It's funny you talk about that too. Last night we talked about synchronicity. So get this. We talked about synchronicities last night, and then today, after, I try to get on Facebook maybe no more than 3 times a day. That's it, because I used to have a Facebook addiction where I would just keep it open and constantly check it and everything. So,
right.
But the memes of people that are still, like, a lot of people are hurt out there. And so I was like, okay, more people talking about toxicity and all this. I get it. So it's a weird time where everybody's learning new things about themselves. So what I did is I went through YouTube and I found that movie, Cinderella Man. You know what I'm talking about? Where, what was his name? Jim Bauer. What was it? No, Braddock. Jim Braddock was
I never watched it, but
so
go ahead.
During the Depression, he was a heavyweight boxer, was a supreme, like, an underdog. He really wasn't as athletic as all the other guys, and he really wasn't, no one ever thought this guy would be a world champion boxer or heavyweight champion, but in the Great Depression, he ended up being, it's this classic Cinderella story. He ended up fighting his way all the way to the championship and beat Max Baer. And Max Baer was known for killing people in the ring. So if you can imagine, during the Great Depression, some guy that's fighting for milk, as he said, it's his own quote, I'm fighting for bread and milk, that doesn't have the talent, doesn't have, there's no way, right, that he's going to win. But through sheer willpower and sheer determination, he pushes himself through and beats Max Baer in the end, so he was like everybody's underdog,
Yes.
And so the point of that whole thing was, and the point of the synchronicity was, I was trying to tell people, like, sometimes, and I've been trying to hint about this too, putting subliminal messages in the show with movie clips and stuff, that sometimes life comes around and knocks the hell out of you, like gives you a good kick in the groin, and you lay there for a minute and you think, like, what was this about? And you have to figure out that maybe it's trying to show you something, You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's a character test.
Oh, goodness. I've had that happen to me terribly. I never thought I would experience what I have this last couple of years. There's nothing worse to be stalked or doxxed on the internet. I would rather throw the internet away and go back to mowing yards. 10 years ago, I never had a computer, never once knew about any Facebook, Discord, whatever, Twitter. It's a wild, wild west, but it's terrible when you get some maniac that I had somebody join my job and, like, call my number and call my old school and, like, completely kick my butt. I never had that happen to me before. And I would rather go in a corner and hide and crawl. That's how I felt sometimes, being doxxed like that. But I've come to realize that it's going to be all right. And you just go through it. I don't know.
Well, there's even people in the chat room say, so here's the thing, whether it's your job, your relationship, your financial status, or whatever, I can promise you this and I know you don't believe in this stuff, Kurt, but I can promise you guys this, that with the planetary alignments, the way these energies are working right now, if something happened to you that was unjustified, it will be justified. Trust me. It's going to, like, Saturn is not going to let anybody get away with anything. Secondly, and you can say this is the Holy Spirit, right, Kurt, because you're a Christian, that if you want revenge or whatever, revenge is like, that's just hate. You just need to let that stuff go. But you also need to let the universe or God, like there's a Bible quote about it, it says, vengeance is mine, let it do its thing. Because if you try to get involved with revenge or whatever, it's going to be bad for you. I promise you.
that person that does this wants you to do that and make it worse and worse. Just lay back, pray. And the thing is, the best thing to do, I've found, I've known this all my life, you pray for your enemy. You pray for those persecuting you, the ones that are doxing you, the ones that are stalking you. Pray hard. It's the hardest thing to do, but that's what the Lord instructs. And yes, you're talking about karma. Karma is as real in Scripture and in Christianity as it is in, your tree hugging or psychic or whatever. Karma, you do something bad to somebody, it's coming back on you like 10-fold, 100-fold, sometimes 1,000-fold. And you do something so hurtful to somebody, don't think it ends there and you win. You're going to lose 10 times harder. So I don't worry knowing that. That's in stone. That's written in red letter. So I don't worry. It just going through it hurts,
Yeah. Well, we got a few people in the chat like talking about, willpower, ? Willpower. It's kind of like, So willpower is different than determination, I think. So like if you ever watched An Exorcist or any movies about exorcisms, you see like the demon against the priest or whatever, right? And the thing about exorcisms is, in even a priest that's involved in exorcisms will tell you that a lot of it is willpower. It's not about, the verses that or the symbols that you're holding. It's the sheer fact that you can face it down, that you don't let the demon beat you down, that you keep going. So you have to have a stronger will than the demon. Now, I don't want to get into this whole thing. Do demons exist, or are they parts of ourselves, or are they, separate things? But I can tell you that they're real in a way that maybe either we're making them real, but in my experience, they're real. So, last night I told that story about how my dad made me ride my bike like that. That's willpower, And so, Aleister Crowley believed, and I want to set the record straight about this too. Aleister Crowley believed that the will was everything, right? Love is the law, love under will. So he believed, and what Thelema believes, that whole religion is that if you align with your true will, then you will align with your true purpose in life, and that love just kind of happens that way. Now, I can tell you that I've personally went down this road because I've had so many damn questions about this. I think it's time to talk about it, of the will. And it's really easy to think that something is why you're here, or it's good for you, or that it's love, or that it's for your higher purpose, but it's really serving the beast, right? And the beast is something that you have to face down eventually, like that human, dirty animal part of yourself, but you can't do it in shame. You just have to recognize it for what it is. But that's what the devil is, Kurt. You know that, right? The devil. That old dirty devil, Satan.
Well, I know I've studied the Bible and I've gotten really close to the Lord at one time. And once I found out who he really was back in 97, he told me he's always with me, regardless of what atmospheres we go through. We go through so many atmospheres, and it changes your life. It makes you not want to play music. It makes you, when 20 people killed in Columbine, you want to not play music and go high. Ruins everything. Bad. But the Lord is always with us. He told me that. One thing I know, and it's in Scripture, and it makes sense, that I think there are demons, there are fallen angels, and there is Satan, the devil, Lucifer. He was the most beautiful angel in heaven, and he tried to go above God, and God kicked him out and threw out a third of the angels in heaven. That goes way deeper than we can ever understand in this universe, but that's what happened. We have a third fallen angels hovering over the earth, to kill, steal, and destroy. And Satan, this has got to be a test. Now that my dad's gone, my grandparents, my grandmother, my mammy, my best friend gone, they're all up there now. We're in a test on this 70, 80, 90-year-old. We live to 100 in my family, but on earth, we're facing demons, and we have the power to override them, and God gives us that strength and power. We're better than a flying demon that wants to kill and steal you and destroy from you. That's all they were sent here to do. But God allowed him to do that, just like God allowed Satan to mess with Job. Do all you can to him, but don't kill him. Give him boils, kill all his family, kill all his crop. Everybody said Job was the wrong one, but he was the righteous one, and he got 100-fold back, right? So I know that there are demons, but I think they are part of the whole plan. You got to close your eyes, back up out of the solar system. Don't look at your desk or your lamp or your computer screen. Back up where we are. We're in a huge universe with a great God that is trying to train us and test us. We have to all go on to where my dad is. And I think it's all awesome the way the Lord kind of trains us and teaches us. And even this very talk is cool that we can do this and discuss.
Well, I've never
did I make any sense at all?
Yeah, you did. You did. And you know what? I have respect for you, brother, because you believe in what you believe in. You know, I'm not a Christian myself, but I was raised a Christian, so I have a lot of respect for you for the fact that you hold that belief. Now, I've got a story here. I want to tell you a story before we take the break, actually. And this is from Shelley. And Shelley's, it says Shelley on Facebook. She says, "Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm from northern Arizona. I'm a Navajo, and I'm 36 years old. I think you would love the story of my very first experience with shadow figures about 22 years ago. I will not try to go into unnecessary details, but if you have any questions, I will gladly answer any and all. Our town is blanketed with ponderosa trees, situated at the base of a mountain. Very picturesque. We live just out of the city limits, right off the highway, but still within a half a mile of the mountain. I was in 8th grade, and I left home headed for a nearby trail. I was trusted to drive since I was only driving a half mile up the highway to a nearby trailhead. The trail is miles long, leading up into the mountain. When I arrived a minute later, it was much too dark. Hold on a second. When I arrived a minute later, it was much too dark for a small walk up the trail, so I sat in the truck listening to music. And the sun was setting behind the mountain, so it was dark blue with clear skies. Perfect evening, but it was getting dark. And I was just listening to music when suddenly a dark, shadowy figure just appeared at the corner of my eyes and sits down in the passenger seat. Just casually sat down. I turned down the music and looked directly at the figure, which doesn't look at me but stares straight ahead as if I'm to drive it somewhere. Now, I can't see her face because of her hair, but she is wet like it was raining outside. Also, she smelled like mud. Just a shadow doing its own thing. So apparently, I guess. In total shock, I turned my head away from her to look straight ahead, too. It was the shadowy figure of a very small woman with long black hair. She was transparent. My first thought was that she was the Navajo, too. As she got situated in the passenger seat, she set a bag between us, which felt up against my arm the entire time she was there until she stepped out. Then I felt the bag being lifted away from my arm. But after a couple seconds of us both staring straight ahead, the bag that was in her hand begins to slide down to her feet, then sort of shuffle lightly at her feet. The bag was actually a small child. It's then that she leaned forward and softly whispered, "Shh, she can see you." And right after the whisper, she quietly picked up the child and stepped out of the truck. The entire moment with the woman and child was about 15 seconds in total. Before I could even have a moment to wonder what the heck this was all about, another figure sat in the passenger seat. This figure was also transparent, shadowy, taller, at least 6'5", wore a hat, had a cigar in his hand, smelled of fire and smoke. And the figure was so tall, his head had to crouch over a bit to fit in the cab. He sat down, rested his right leg near the ankle on his left knee, and rested his hand with cigar on his right knee, and turned and looked at me directly. Now, his eyes were non-existent. There was no eyes. There was nothing. Like if his body were black pepper and his eyes were simply cut out, leaving nothing but empty space. Just a clear view of that simply cut out, leaving nothing but empty space. Just a clear view like a passenger window and the trees behind him through the small cutouts. So I turned to lock eyes with this new figure for one complete second and then turned my head back quickly to face straight ahead. I was utterly terrified, and I saw in my peripheral that he too had turned his head facing forward and seemed to be waiting for me to drive somewhere. I sat with the figure for about 10 seconds, and it just sat there bringing the cigar to its mouth twice as if smoking the cigar. I began to heavily smell wet dirt and rain, and I'd had enough. Now this is freaky. I was afraid that it would somehow take me into some other dimension or something. My young brain was so not ready for anything like this. With the figure still in my passenger seat, I started the truck and began to drive forward about 10 feet, but decided to reverse the truck, park it, and ask it questions. Now, remember your episode, Joe, about the scariest moment in your life and you facing it? Yeah, I do remember that. I'm glad you heard that. I did not see the figure anymore, but sat there anyway and asked questions as if it was still there, like, who are you? What do you want? But there was nothing, not a sound. Nothing happened for a couple of minutes. Then I started to hear voices approaching or just getting louder. I'm totally alone at this trailhead parking lot, and these voices should not be. So I sat and braced myself, and all of a sudden the back of the truck weighs down as if a group of people are piling into the bed of the truck. There was a camper on the truck, and it was near dark, but I was still able to peek back there and make certain no one was in the camper. But I hear at least 4 different voices talking amongst themselves sitting in the camper. Again, like hitchhikers, just seem to be waiting to go somewhere. So I sit there and listen to them for a few seconds. There's muffled talking and laughing. Suddenly, one of the figures from the camper leans into the cab from the camper and stares directly at the side of my face. Now our faces are inches from each other, and I just sit as still as possible, staring straight ahead. The figure stared for a few seconds, then went back to the other figures in the camper, whispering loudly, "She's scared," then laughing about it. I guess, quote, they decided to scare me even further and began in an exaggerated voice saying, "Ooh, he's sitting right next to you. Do you see him?" I think they were referring to the tall figure that was sitting in the passenger seat, who I could no longer see. But all those voices were just immensely terrifying. I left right then, and there, not completely sure how I drove myself home. I must have went into shock because I don't remember the rest of the night, and I was hospitalized after I returned home. Of course, the stories don't end there. It's safe to say that I experienced some paranormal trauma, and sadly, I still do to this day. We have since moved from the house I lived in, but still live in the same town. So these figures maybe were not attached to my old house, but to me instead. 2 weeks ago, I had this episode. Now, she sent this to me on Monday, by the way. So 2 weeks ago, I had this episode where the amount of figures and their presence was so intense, I literally wanted my mother like a child. I was so afraid, and the intensity would not stop for at least 10 minutes. Maybe I had a panic attack, but I felt so much fear that I thought to myself that I'm doomed. I will see and feel these things until the day I die. I don't want this. I can't escape it. Which is why the movie The Possession of Michael King scares me to death. However, through the years, I just lived it, scared all the time, functioning with the rest of my family and not understanding it at all. I was so young, I still don't understand it. I really enjoy the EVP podcast, even though they scare my socks off. It never occurred to me throughout the years to try to electronically record these figures. So one day, I was heading out grocery shopping with my mother, and I hit record on my Amazon Fire tablet. I set it on the floor in my bedroom facing the hallway, and then I left the house completely empty. Kids are all at school. The TVs and radios are all turned off. The neighbors' dogs are indoors. The video is so interesting because there are no lights on in my bedroom, but 9 minutes, and a light begins to flash, reflecting off the wall. And after the footsteps, taps, bangs, whispers, and a shout, the voice of a man seeming to be at the front entrance seemed to shout Navajo, "Where are you?" About 5 minutes later, there are clearly two voices whispering to each other near the tablet. They seem to be planning something. One voice is trying to persuade the other voice to go to the other room and see who or what is there. I theorized that they didn't want to be seen by the man that was shouting earlier, or they knew there was a recorder, or they maybe didn't want to be seen by our cats who were all outside. But the voice seems to get impatient and whisper loudly and clearly, "Go!" Then footsteps leaving the room in a hurry. So many footsteps. You hear the chair in my kitchen move. All the while, the light is flickering. Wow. Well, you know what? If you could send that in to me, Michelle, like any of the voices or videos or whatever, I promise you we would gladly appreciate it. She also says, "I hope you enjoyed my story. And if you would like, I will try my hand at this tech stuff and send you the recording." Yes, please. Thank you for the services you do. Thank you to the guest you interview who provide useful, simple techniques and insights into this very strange world. What do you think about that, Kurt? That's pretty freaky, man. I guess we lost Kurt. I don't know. I think I'm losing my Skype, though, for some reason. Here, let me do this. That's weird that I'm telling that story and this guy Skype just turned off. And there he goes. You know what I'm going to do, too, anyways? I got to take our last break, but you guys, if you want, oh, there he is. Jesus Christ, that's loud. Kurt, what happened to you, man?
I don't know it.
Did you miss the whole story? Please tell me you didn't miss the whole story. Did you?
I heard everything.
You did.
It just cut off.
That's so freaky, man.
Sorry about that.
Well, thank you for that story, Michelle. We're going to take our last break. We'll be right back, guys. Stay with us.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
You know, stress is at an all-time high, and all of us could use a little bit of stress relief. That's why I want to talk to you about Soothe. Now, this is an app you can download on your phone. They have a massage therapist that arrives with a massage table, sheets, lotion, oils, and music, and you're in charge. You can book in seconds and schedule at 8 a.m. to midnight. Massage 7 days a week, anytime it's available. There's a 60-minute arrival period. A vetted background-checked massage therapist will come to you in as little as an hour. All of the therapists are vetted by industry veterans that ensure a compassionate, healing touch. So maybe you're a little stressed and you need to feel spoiled. Well, There's no better way to do that than relax at your own home and not have to deal with the outside world with Soothe. Right now, you can get $10 off your first massage by putting in the code word FRINGE10 at checkout. That's www.soothe.com or download the Soothe app and put in the code word FRINGE10.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Come, walk through the mossy creek and up the hill. Never mind the flashing lights and otherworldly shadows. They stay hidden within the trees. Come, step up to the shack and begin your journey to the answers that you seek. This is Lady Anne, and you are listening to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Cayce. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's FRINGE at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
Yeah, so Michelle, if you're out there and you're listening, please send in those recordings. It was weird, though, that we lost you, Kurt, there. But you did hear the whole story, right? You heard, think about that, right? Like, I've had some pretty freaky experiences in my life, but nothing where shadow figures got in the car and, gets close to your face like that. That's one of those moments kind of when your heart speeds up, and
that
you go,
would be crazy.
Yeah, because I've had, the only time I've had that happen was when I was trying to do those out-of-body things, and I had something that was just like, right in my face, But I wonder if it's weird that they were waiting for a ride though, like that. And what you should do, Michelle, is if you feel like you're plagued or you have post-traumatic stress from that, honestly, you should call Barbara at Metaphorical Archaeology. Just give her a call. Look up the number on the banner on the website. I can give it to you here if you're listening. I'm sure you are. It's 214-995-3754, and I'm sure she can help you with those types of things. But I don't want to ever experience that again. That was the kind of fear that you don't want. You know how people like to be scared? They watch horror movies. They're kind of entranced by the dark and cemeteries and all that. But then there's these moments in your life that really happen that you wish that you get so afraid of that you kind of wish that they didn't. And I got to tell you guys, man, I've been doing some hardcore, what we call here is shadow work, what you may call, Kurt, is facing the devil, right? And eventually, it's going to come to that. You're going to come to those moments where you're going to be terrified, and you're still going to have to push through it. And that's the bitch of it all, honestly. I wish we didn't have to do those things, but we do. I want to give out some shout outs to some people real quick, if you don't mind. Looks like Water and Starlight, and this is for January and late December here, okay? So thank you to Water and Starlight, Amber. I'm just going to say your first names. Brandon, the fellows at Grimerica, Alenka's Gift. I think I know who that is. Christopher. I think that's my brother, the truck driver. Courtney, Larry, Pacho, Randolph. And, man, my screen just went out on me. Where was I at? Randolph. I haven't given out thanks to people in a long time. You got to do that, Kurt, Let's see. Craig, Jake, Tamala, Joseph, Andy, Stephen, Genevieve, David, Kurt, thank you, brother, Lynn, Barbara, Vivi, Debbie, Nick, Ryan Gable actually helped out. Thank you. Thomas, let's see, Amanda, Amandala, Damien, let's see if I've missed anybody here. Luna, that's a weird name. That's a cool name though. Cosin, David, Travis, and Mark. I think that's everybody. Thank you guys so much for your support and your help.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you mentioned that, we have to deal with evil. We have to deal with the devil, Satan, demons, fallen angels, Lucifer. It's in stone in history, whether pagan or Muslim or Christian or wherever you come from, it's all there. Even my great-great-great-grandmother, the oldest scripture in the world, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. All of my relatives forever have read that and believe that, and I do too, and I know it's true. So know that God Almighty, whoever you believe he is, will give you the power and the strength and the common sense to defeat something evil. Light always wins over darkness. It always does.
Not always. Come on.
Well,
now.
It takes a while, but in the end, it will win.
I think you're underestimating the power of the dark side, Kurt.
You're watching fiction movies and, alien come and eat you up and Mars attacks Earth, all those fake movies.
Now, come on now. My parents brought me up to say, hey, the bully always gets what they deserve. But that's not always true. There's bullies out there that constantly win,
But
come on.
In the end, they don't. Look what happened to Biff. He ended up eating manure, right?
But that's a movie. But see, that's a movie. Wait, I gotta give a quick thanks to there's a couple of people I forgot. Joe, and Kate, and Pi, and Ron, and Larry, and I think that's it. I was trying to go back to December the 1st. Nick, did I say Nick? Rachel,
Nick.
John, Billy.
Are you talking about Nick, the Nick I know?
No, there's a guy named Nick Meyer from Arkansas that I actually met him in Little Rock, and he's been listening to the show and supporting and stuff too. And yeah, so I just wanted to tell everybody thanks.
Yeah.
So, did you hear that Amandala won money betting on the Titans this weekend? I bet she did. I wonder how much she won, though. I'll have to ask her. But yeah, she's been a big help too here.
Cool. I'm glad you got a lot of help. Dang,
man.
That's so cool.
One day,
Love
hopefully,
you,
we
brother.
won't have to ask for it. We'll get picked up by some big syndication or whatever once we make this super entertaining like the WWF.
The new art belt to call the show, dial 1-800-225 west of the Rockies, 5288.
If you go to, there's people that like.
I miss Art Bell.
Everybody misses Art, man. I still listen to the classics.
I had a call today at my job. Don't tell my job, but a man moving from Los Angeles to Pahrump, Nevada. And I said, boy, you're moving to Pahrump? And I have an old friend that lived there. And then I choked up. And I had to go on mute and slap my face because I was going to start bawling. But
you sound like you're about to, you're not drinking tonight, are you, Kurt?
No, well, a little bit, just a tiny bit.
Are you still drinking that rot gut whiskey?
Oh, I don't drink what? I've never drank that. Do you know today?
Vodka. Is it vodka? Is that what it is?
No. Today in history, on the 15th, 1967, the first Super Bowl was today, by the way. Green Bay Packers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs in Los Angeles, January 15th.
Super Bowl number 1.
Yes, the year I was born, 67. Wow.
Well, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do for Valentine's? I was about to say, who are you going to do for Valentine's? What are you going to do for Valentine's, Kurt? You ain't got you a girl yet?
Madonna, I told you that already.
Madonna actually talked to you, and you feel like, see, you're holding on. You got to let go.
Yeah. Never let go. That's the key.
You've been watching Titanic too much, man. You got to let go.
Quiet. Don't mock me.
But seriously though, man, like as long as I've known you, you're a gentleman, you're not an ugly dude. I know what you look like. You got a decent career. What the hell's the deal, man?
It just takes a while to get to where I need to be.
You should get on like Tinder or something,
Yeah, right. Lord, you ought to. What's wrong with you? What you doing?
I'm on every dating site there is. I'm just under I'm under alter ego. I don't really have my face on there.
You probably best place to find a girl. Go to church.
I catfish girls. That's what I do.
Southern Baptist Church. Dress up nice. Potluck, and you'd find the best girl. You know that.
Yeah.
Do you have a church?
I already done that when I was young. I used to chase church girls on purpose. That gets old after a while.
Well, you're older now, and you need to find one. There's one right there for you.
Listen,
Don't auction. No nice sucker.
Valentine's Day. So before Valentine's Day, we're going to do an auction for a date for Night Stalker. All right. So yes. I need an auctioneer, Kurt.
I'll be the auctioneer.
Man, come on. Let's hear it. Can you do that?
What does Night Stalker look like first to make sure
he's a pretty good looking dude, Let
me see. Oh, long hair.
Yeah, he's got long hair.
Yeah, we'll find him a girl.
Yeah, he's not a bad looking dude. And then we're gonna no, that's not gonna cut. That dog won't hunt. We need a real one.
I can't do it.
Do you know any? Does anybody know an auctioneer? I'll pay. We'll pay one.
Do you ever watch the Storage Wars? I love Storage Wars.
Yeah, that's what we need.
I bet you call one and they do it for you.
Yeah, because we're gonna go through this Carl Jung stuff, and then as Valentine's Day approaches, we're gonna talk about some sticky stuff, right? We're gonna talk about the law of gender, the Hermetic law of gender, and also sacred sexuality and the secrets to the universe, man. We're probably gonna talk about Crowley. I mean, this is the perfect time to do it. It's around Valentine's Day to talk about this power of the male and female polarity type thing. So we need to get that going. But I need an auctioneer because the person that wins this E-Date with Night Stalker. We're going to set up everything, man. There's going to be movies, and then we're going to do like dinner. I think we're probably going to do Uber Eats or something where both parties are going to be, he'll take her out, to a nice romantic dinner, unless they happen to live in her area. That would be cool too. But you can do anything online, Kurt, nowadays. You don't have to worry about it.
I bet there's something on the internet now. You put your voice into whatever you want to say, and it'll make you an auctioneer. Probably.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do that. But the girls, and the girls, well, I didn't even know. Like Night Stalker, we have to figure out if you just want girls or do you want guys to bid too. I have to talk to you about all that stuff, but that's what we're going to do during Valentine's Day. And then, well, hell, I don't know. I don't know the guy, I mean, I know him, but I don't know him that well. So we're going to do that. And then hopefully we'll get his studio set up to help with the news. So we want to have Night Stalker news and Jess Rogie, the Rogie Report, right? So we'll have our news team set.
One thing of Titanic, I'm so forever dreams about it to research paper. Arizona was founded in 1912. Guess what date? Valentine's Day, 1912. That's when, and then 2 months later, Titanic sunk.
You're proud of Arizona, aren't you?
1912, the year Titanic. It's just all weird. Eva Hart. Did you ever hear a testimony from her, Titanic lady, old lady?
No.
Older?
Wait, yeah, I did. You actually showed me that a long time ago. Yes, sir. I think I did.
She died on Valentine's Day, 1990, and her name was Eva Hart. Just little synchronicities there. Hint, hint. It's not all coincidence. Weird.
That's sad. Yeah, sorry about that.
Not sad. She's all right. She's in heaven with all the others now. My bad.
I want to go over some, before we get out of here, just you YouTube folks. Y'all crack me up, man. Elle comments on YouTube. Thank God Elle is still around. She listens on YouTube. Someone said on the the Dr. Skinner show that somebody's getting inside a Ford. I guess he's talking about the intro. Thank you, by the way. You are the only, this is from Andrea. You're the only host, Joe, that I can compare yourself to Art Bell in my personal opinion. Please don't play to my ego like that. But, nobody will ever be compared to that guy. And it would take thousands of people to say that. But thank you so much for the compliment. I really appreciate that. I don't know about this guest. There's some mean people on YouTube.
Did they say anything bad about me? I'm sure plenty.
Hold on. This is from Mama Lena Bean. There's a drug in all the tap water that causes homosexuality. So that explains people not being born that way. Oh, you get the hell. And this is a serious statement. Someone said that. Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. I guess someone's talking about comparing me to the Dukes of Hazzard. Thank you, I guess.
Beats all you ever saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they've been born. You ought to end with that song, Straighten the Curves.
Thanks for posting. Cut off the commercials and I'll listen to you every day. Sorry, brother. Fast forward to the commercials. Try that. Finally, Facts. Fantastic show. 182 views. WTF. I'm sharing this on BitChute, YouTube, and Bookface.
The only way I know how.
Magic exists. It's very few who understand it or can control it, but society, science, and media scoffs at it well in the West. There's a lot of people that know a lot on YouTube, isn't there? Okay, this is cool. APL commented, I live near where Space Force is headquartered, near Colorado Springs. We see odd things in the sky all the time, day or night, and it's happening all the time. So that's where the Space Force stuff is, man. Colorado Springs, I guess that's where they're launching this thing. Bubba wants to be free. I don't understand that. Thanks. Maybe they're calling me Bubba, trailer park trash or something. I hope one day, Joe, you will discuss the cities and human ascension someday. Okay.
I'm posting the Dukes of Hazzard intro for everybody right there. I have to now. There it is.
What happened to Mary's show? Did they take it down or something? Comments are disabled. What's going on here? You may see comments are turned off below a video that you've published, or comments are disabled for this video. In studio comment settings, this can happen for 3 different reasons. Well, I didn't turn them off. You've disabled them. Comments on the video have been disabled by YouTube to protect minors, or your channel or video's audience is set as made for kids. Good God. I still haven't figured out what they're doing over at YouTube. They're pissing me off. I'll figure that out.
So you have a YouTube show going right now too, live?
No, I just put the archives over there, and then people talk,
Then they listen and post later.
Honestly, wish I didn't have to, but there are people that just will not use anything but YouTube. And I'm like, why? Just use the audio streams or the podcast, and it's easier on your phone and data, but they just love YouTube. So it's good to talk to you again, Kurt. I'm glad you're doing okay.
Too, brother.
Your faith is good. You got a new year, 2020's coming with 2020 vision, you said?
Everything's going to be all right.
Everything's going to be all right.
I'm hoping the rapture might be this year. It might be a good
Jesus. Don't you know that's not real?
Well, it is too, but it's just going to take a while.
Lord, take me away from this terrible place.
Don't mock the rapture.
I'm not. I'm sorry, brother. It's just funny to me. Why do you want to leave so bad?
I want to see all my grandparents and dad. I miss them very much.
Well, that makes sense. We got to get out of here, though. I want a big shout out to our guest tonight, which was Dr. Greg Little. Fantastic guest. Great guy. Very informative guy. He said that he would be back anytime that we wanted him to come back.
I enjoyed that show. Yeah, it was good.
Right? It's good to have great guests like that. It was probably going to go down as one of the better shows. I also want to thank Pacho, Don, Amendola, I guess everybody in the Fringe FM chat room. I said, I guess, I know. Eric Markham, Jeremy Scott. And please don't forget that this show is produced by the Fringe FM. Don't copy it without written permission, especially on YouTube. Tomorrow night's guest is P.D. Newman. We're going to be talking about like micro-intelligence and compounds and spirituality with a Freemason and a Rosicrucian. Pretty cool.
And opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm not